Joining us, MS Now senior legal reporter Lisa Rubin, senior politics reporter at HuffPost Jennifer Bindry, and co-founder of the Lincoln Project and former GOP strategist Rick Wilson. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Jane, I want to start with you at the table. This list that President Trump seemingly wants, right? I kind of want to know also who would be on this list, but what I would do with that list as a reporter, what you would do with that list as a reporter, what the American people would do with that list of their representatives who voted for the quote unquote Save America Act would be different than what Donald Trump wants it for.
Well, yes, whoever votes for that bill is voting for a pretty blatantly bad bill that would suppress votes. And we're here in August, September, October, 3 months before the midterms. The president's popularity is in the toilet. Republicans are full on in re-election mode. They are very focused on appealing to voters, talking about affordability, talking about the economy, the things that regular people want to talk about and feel every day. And Trump is in the toilet with his ratings and talking about making, 3 a.m. rants on social media about an individual senator he may not like. He is driving us further into an unending war. He's doing all these things that are extremely unpopular as gas prices go up, yada, yada. So, of course, he's like, oh, well, if people are going to, we got to protect the elections in November because widespread voter fraud, I guess. Right. But that's the same thing. This is just another continuation of what happened in 2020. It's just unfounded claims of widespread voter fraud. And in this case, it's this idea that people who are not citizens are going to be rushing to the polls to vote and that this bill will prevent that from happening. But the reality is it's already illegal for people to vote if you're not a citizen. So this bill claims to fix a problem that is not happening.
Yeah, I would go even further than 2020. In 2016, Rick, when he lost to Ted Cruz in the Iowa caucus, he said it was because of some kind of voter fraud. In 2016, he said that in California, the numbers had to be fake because he lost the 3 million votes there. When you are thinking of kind of how this election is going to play out, I have always had the question, I think a lot of us reporters have had the question of why the president doesn't seem more concerned about the outcome of the election. Why doesn't he seem to be doing the things that we know presidents would do if they were trying to staunch the bleeding of supporters around the country, whether that be independents or independent-leaning Republicans or MAGA Republicans? And the Save America Act feels like that's the answer. It feels like he wants to, in some way, shape, or form, shenanigan within this election in 2026.
Eugene, I think that's a really good point. This is, I think, a setup for watching a Democratic wave hit the country this fall, failing completely to address affordability. He thinks it's a joke and a fraud, all that stuff. But I also think he's setting it up for the fall to say, Mike Johnson, don't seat these newly elected Democrats. It's all a fraud. I think he's looking to do something to raise that level of chaos and uncertainty and to give Republicans in the fall, after the election is over, something to cling to try, as you said, a shenanigan here to deny the Democrats a victory this fall.
Lisa, let's talk about some of the legal aspects of this. President Trump has publicly asserted that states act merely, I think he said, as agents for the federal government when counting votes and must follow presidential directives. I haven't read the Constitution today, but I don't think it's changed much. And what the Constitution says is that the states and the locales are in charge of doling out the elections, of operating the elections. So what is he talking about?
Yeah, Eugene, I don't really know what he's talking about. There is some additional language that sometimes we don't take proper account of, which says essentially the states administer elections unless and until Congress wants to legislate otherwise. That is an option available to Congress with respect to certain aspects of election administration. But here, what he's saying is that the states are subject to presidential control. And that's something for which the Constitution offers him no authority whatsoever. He is wish casting upon a document that is at the foundation of our democracy, and that just doesn't cut it.
Rick, one of the things that Jake Sherman got out of President Trump in his interview with him that aired today was that the president was viewing Republicans as the ones who were getting the anger from the voters, and they weren't mad at him. They're not mad at me. They're mad at those Republicans, as if he's not the leader of the Republican Party. When you, as someone who was a mover and a shaker and an operator in the yesteryears of the Republican Party, did you ever think you would see a leader of the party kind of shake his hands like this of their fate in November?
It's absolutely unprecedented, Eugene, and it really speaks to the fact that Trump has an arrogance about him that he's the only thing that matters. And look, he earned that from them in a way because they've treated him like he's the only thing that matters. But I've never seen a president of either party so willing to throw his own people under the bus and so willing to start blaming them for things that clearly either couldn't be accomplished or were counterproductive or were off message politically. They've tried in some cases to save him from himself, and he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to be saved. He doesn't want to have help. He just wants them to obey him because he believes that they are his political property at this point. And I think it is really extraordinary to watch how much venom he has for them versus how much venom he has for the Democrats. It's quite remarkable.
You mentioned, Jen, the Trump's approval ratings hitting historic lows. We're looking at the CNN poll, 34%, AP Nork, 33%, 32% for Quinnipiac. It couldn't really get much worse considering his base is going nowhere. Do you think that Trump, who kind of already is a lame duck, right? He's in his lame duck era, as the kids would probably say on Twitter. Do you think his threats carry the same weight, especially past January 3rd? If Democrats take at least one of the houses of Congress.
I mean, I'm in the Senate a lot,
yeah, and
I have a sense of how they're feeling right now. I think they're exhausted. I'm talking about the Republicans. Mm-hmm. I think they're really worn out.
Democrats exhausted too,
we
but
can
yes.
talk about why they're both exhausted. But in terms of the Republicans, I think they're exhausted. I think they're practically begging the president to knock it off with talking about things that are not popular, that are like playground level insults at politicians, and to just let them do things that will help them in the November elections. Yeah. And he is standing in the way of them doing that again and again. And don't forget that right now, as they're trying to deliver to him, because they're still beholden to Trump. Right. Don't think that's changed. They are. But there are things happening in there where they're still sort of trying to push back, and then they just fold. So like just today, they just lined up all the votes now to confirm Trump's attorney general nominee. Mm-hmm. They didn't have to do that. But what does that tell you? They're mad at him. They're tired. But the final Republican who said today that he's going to support Trump's attorney general nominee, Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, had every reason to say no. And he could have killed that confirmation. And he still did it. He still said yes. So it's like, what are we doing? Yeah. This guy's hurting your election chances, and you're still tying yourself to him.
History doesn't really look at the explanation so much as the actual vote. So Cassidy spending all that time talking up there and getting kind of emotional, I don't think that's going to help him and how history's going to view him. Lisa, when you talk to legal experts about the kind of concerns they have about whether it's the Save America Act or the other ways in which the Trump administration is trying to meddle with the elections this year. How concerned are they? How concerned should the voters be? I'm one of those people who, I hope on that Wednesday and the days after that we have all been running around with the hair on fire for nothing, but I don't imagine that's going to be the case. What do legal folks tell you?
Eugene, if you ask people in sort of good government and pro-democracy groups or lawyers or both how they're feeling about the election on a scale of 1 to 10, from not at all concerned to like, let's break glass, they'll tell you it's an 11. And that's because this administration has like a veritable smorgasbord of options about how they intend to disrupt the election or the security or integrity of the election under the very banner of election integrity. It's everything from controlling who can vote by mail to, as the Save America Act provides, requiring proof of citizenship to change your registration or register in the first instance. Let's just talk about one population of people that would be hugely affected by that. Recently married women whose driver's licenses or passports may not match their current name. It would make it impossible, literally, for millions of women in this country to abide by the strictures of the Save America Act. And yet, they are claiming that this is absolutely necessary because we have some sort of widespread problem with non-citizen voting that, as Jennifer and you were discussing earlier, just doesn't exist as a numerical issue.